Good morning. Welcome in. We are the Out of Bounds Show. We've got Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. You know he does it all. Saints, LSU. But this time of year, it's NFL draft, baby. And it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just more fun because it's the unknown. One, we all have our opinions on who the team should draft and who is going to translate into the NFL. And then two, we don't know. We just, you have a few surefire, but you never know who's going to be the next star, and you never know who's going to be the next bust, unfortunately. But the Saints, I get the sense that apathy set in, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to start with the Saints question. Even our Saints fans around here kind of kicking rocks. But, in the NFL, you don't ever know. I mean, all of a sudden you get 5 or 6 new players and you can find yourself in the playoffs. Crazy stuff happens. So we'll see. A very famous name is now, or how about this? He's the son. Kubiak is a famous name in the NFL. And the son is now the OC for the Saints. But I want to know what Mike Detillier thinks the Saints should do if he got to pick and make the pick in the first round of the NFL draft. Mike D., who would you pick if you were general manager Mike Detillier for the New Orleans Saints?
It would be an front player, either an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. It would be one of the two. Picking where you picking, you're not going to get your choice of exactly that. Left tackle would be the spot for me, but I've got 7 guys in my top 22 that are tackles, but a lot of those guys have played on the right side. So I think one of the guys to watch would be J.C. Latham from Alabama. I think he would be a guy that would fit. Now, he's played right tackle his entire career, but powerhouse run blocker. He needs some work on the technical side, footwork-wise, as a pass protector, but he rarely gets beat. He does a nice job of sort of slamming that outside edge and shutting that down. But again, the NFL's a different group of guys. You don't play top pass rushers every week. I don't care if you're in the SEC or not. There's not a top one every week. In the NFL, you're playing a top one every week. The other guy, and I really like him, is Jared Verse, defensive end from Florida State. I think the Saints have been into this certain size, height, weight, all this and that. He may not fit exactly into that deal, but he's just so productive. He's quick off the snap. He knows how to use his arms and hands really well to get off of a block. He plays the run very well. And, again, he gives you a pass rush edge. Cam Jordan's not getting any younger. Peyton Turner, I couldn't tell you anything about him. He's been hurt 80% of the time with the Saints. So I think those two guys would certainly come into mind. And Byron Murphy from Texas plays defensive tackle. I think he will be a player, too, in that area that I'd have interest in. Interior player, very disruptive. He's gotten so much better as a technician. Bo Davis coached him at Texas, and you can tell he's got a lot of sort of Pete Jenkins type techniques in getting off of a block and tying up things inside. He's disruptive, and he gives you an interior pressure that certainly the Saints don't have a lot of. Brian Brzee last year, I thought, played well as a pass rusher. He's a long, real lean interior player. He has trouble at times getting off of a block because he's so much body and against the run. But I think he showed some potential as a pass rusher and being disruptive inside. You certainly could use another guy like that. So I think Byron Murphy from Texas, Jared Verse, the defensive end from Florida State, J.C. Latham. from Alabama, because I think Joao Ole Fashantu and Talise Fuago, I think those three offensive tackles will be off the board by the time the Saints pick.
Okay. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. He wants to go offensive line, preferably OT, first-round pick in the NFL draft for Loomis and the crew. This segment is brought to you by Kinetic Staffing. Get the right people on the field. They hire executive management, CPAs, accounting, legal, technology. That is the firm, Kinetic Staffing, for your next executive management role. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds show. All right, Mike D, what's going to happen with Michael Thomas?
He won't be on the Saints team this year. I mean, that contract was set up a year ago to be a one and done. And so I can't see the Saints trying to re-sign him. I think his comments on social media and everything else, he wants to be somewhere else. He's had difficulties staying healthy. He has shown when he is healthy, he can still play in this league. Difficult part for Mike is going to be playing any length of time without getting hurt. But he's not coming back on this Saints team. I'd be shocked if he did. Though I was surprised last year he signed that deal to come back. So, but I think his comments, social media wise, is kind of telling you he does not want to be back here, and he won't be.
Mike, should Derek Carr's play at the end of the year give Saints fans a little bit of confidence, a little bit of excitement going into 2024?
You stuck in football purgatory. Derek Carr is who he is as a player. He's going to have moments where he looks really good and moments he doesn't. The one thing with Derek, he's all about hitting the big play. That's been part of his MO from high school to college into the pros. That's not going to change. The problem at times with Derek is instead of pulling up and hit the 5-foot jumper, he wants to hit the deeper play downfield. I think that's kind of what separates the really great players and great quarterbacks in this league and the guys that are kind of in the middle of the pack, in which I would consider that to be Derek as far as starting quarterbacks are concerned. Not every play Patrick Mahomes makes is a great play. He does take that, if you want to call it layup or 5-foot jumper. He takes that and then moves on. And then he'll make a little out throw that you say, whoa, look at that. How many guys can do that? Josh Allen, similar. We see Joe Burrow, similar. I just think at times Derek's mindset is, I got to make this big play. And he passes up an opportunity to kind of move the sticks. But if you've watched him and scouted him, he has sort of been that way throughout his entire career. What makes you think he's going to be different now? He is who he is. And that you will see moments, and I thought he played pretty well down the stretch for the Saints, where he'll look real good, and then other times not. And a lot of it has to do with the shorter part of the game for him. Just that short intermediate part that he has always sort of been the roller coaster type thrower to. I think as far as a deep ball thrower, man, he can hum it downfield deep. It's the other little things that has gotten him in trouble, if it's been with the Raiders and now with the Saints. But you're a lot better. Not many quarterbacks can kind of put their team on his back and ride him through in the NFL. Mm-hmm. He's not one of those guys. He needs other players around him. And I'm interested to see what Kubiak will be able to do with Mike Shanahan and, the Shanahan tree have been a lot about trying to trick you a little bit off formations, a little bit of eye candy, getting one guy to make a mistake and then attacking that area. The Saints have not been a great motion team. That particular part of the game has certainly not been there the last few years. I think you'll see much more of that with Kubiak as the offensive coordinator. A little bit more eye candy to throw a defense off. And it's situational football today. So, you worried about moving the chains and getting scores and keeping your defense off the field. And defensively, you have some elements there that is pretty doggone good. Now, last year they didn't stop the run as well as you'd like. But I thought pass defense, they did a really good job. But stopping the run and getting a consistent pass rush, they weren't able to do.
Okay, so it's early, but who would be your favorite in the NFC South?
If they re-sign Baker Mayfield, it would be Tampa. Why wouldn't it be? They've won 3 straight. So, again, they've won 3 straight NFC South titles. You can pick Carolina, and do they have all the pieces in place? The answer is no. I think Atlanta has a lot of pieces. Offensive line's really good. I like their running game. Defensively, they've gotten better. Don't have a trigger man. Don't have a guy at quarterback. Can turn the engine over in the car. Can Zach Robinson help them offensively? Yes, but he needs a trigger guy at quarterback. And with the Saints, you see what you see. They are middle-of-the-pack team with some age on defense. When you think about Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu. 3 key pieces there in the winter years of their NFL career.
Yeah.
And a big uncertainty at right tackle with Ryan Ramczyk, who's had some knee issues, and you would hope to get it, that could get fixed, but you just don't know. So if Tampa re-signs Baker Mayfield, they have a lot of pieces in place to, again, make this a run. And I thought last year that their defense played really well, and they hit some on explosive plays. What they do with Mike Evans is going to be crucial, too, because of the fact Mike gave him that big play threat at wide receiver. I thought Mike Evans had one of his best seasons in the last 5 or 6 last year with Baker Mayfield. It connected really, really well. And what happens with him to sign him up, try to get him re-signed?
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Kinetic Staffing. Get the right people on the field. Assembling the right team is everything in industries they serve, including executive management, accounting, and attorneys legal. Okay, Atlanta picks 8. Mike, if you're betting $100 today, do the Atlanta Falcons draft a quarterback?
Well, figuring that the top 3 quarterbacks will probably go 1, 2, 3 unless they trade up. No. I think Atlanta would certainly be in the sweepstakes for a Justin Fields, who's from that area. Remember, he started out his college career at Georgia before transferring to Ohio State. So that would be a possibility. Or they go with a veteran like Kirk Cousins. I don't know the exact details of what will happen with him with the Vikings, but they've got to get that straightened out at quarterback. Because I think of all the teams in the NFC South, they're the closest to catching Tampa.
Okay.
But, man, you can't go in there with what you had a year ago. You just can't at quarterback, and it's too important a position. I think they would love to trade up to try to get one, but, man, the price is going to be extremely high. My intrigue early is going to be what happens with the Bears at 1. because of the fact that if you look at Caleb Williams, there's a lot of connected dots here. And the fact that Caleb grew up and went to high school in the Washington, D.C. area. His senior offensive assistant coach at USC a year ago was Cliff Kingsbury, who is now the new offensive coordinator with the Washington Commanders. New ownership with Washington, and they got to make a splash. How much would they be willing to go up from 2-1 to get Caleb Williams? And then at the 2 spot, you know, if you like Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whatever one you want, you could get a bundle just to drop down 1 spot. And for the Commanders, you're bringing in sort of a hometown guy who grew up there. You've got an offensive coordinator with experience in dealing with Caleb. And from an ownership standpoint, what better to get on the side of the fans than to bring in Caleb Williams? I would watch for that. Because something is brewing. Okay, you got turned down by the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions as the head coach.
That's true. What happened there, Mike?
I'm not real sure if maybe it wasn't kind of a series of things. But, I mean, as an offensive coordinator, why would you turn down a job that's going to pay you a ton of money? There are only 32 of those jobs in the NFL. You have new ownership with a ton of money in a town that's football crazy. I mean, they love their football there. And yet you turn it down to go back to Detroit. People have talked about he's wanting a certain amount of money. And in today's game, to pay a coach over $10 million to be a head coach is a drop in the bucket for ownership. So maybe he didn't feel right about the setup in Washington. I don't know. There's only one guy that can answer that. But, you know, for you to be going to Detroit to interview and then he calls you kind of midway and says, I'm not interested, there's something to that story, a little bit more than the obvious. There's something there. And, again, I think Dan Quinn's a good coach. I think he's got a good staff here.
Agree.
They got a lot of money in free agency. He got over $70 million to spend. You can get well quickly if you make the right personnel choices. And in a city that they just live and breathe football. Because talking and doing shows there is very similar to doing shows in the South, when you do it in the D.C. area, of how much they love their football. But, again, I would watch, because if you want to make a haul of draft picks and accumulate them, if you, say, convince yourself, you know what, man, I think Jaden Daniels is every bit as good as Caleb Williams, all I got to do is drop down 1 spot, pick my quarterback, and get a bundle back from the Commanders.
That's true.
And I think they'd be willing to do it and give you up a lot, because they're, again, all those ties of him growing up there, his senior offensive assistant at USC being Kingsbury, new ownership, that job, they just sort of handing it to you. And so I think over the next 2 weeks, this is why the combine, people talk about the workouts and stuff. Man, do I need to go to Indianapolis to find out if a guy is fast or not? Come on. I have watched him for a while. The biggest thing about the combine is the medicals, because you'll never get put through a medical testing like you will in Indy. And secondly, the interviews. Because really, for a lot of these guys, it's their first job interview in the NFL. that you get to sit down with GMs, director of player personnel, the head coach, whatever. And so it's a job interview. It's not about how fast. I never saw a 40-yard dash field out on a football field. I never saw people bring a bench press machine out in the middle of a football field, or how high you can jump. Is it all interesting? Yes. Is it a piece of the puzzle? Yes. But it doesn't tell you the most important thing. I learned this years ago from Jim Finks. God bless him. I was first doing this late 80s, and he told me, he said, hey, listen, I think you do a really good job, but always remember one thing. Don't fall in love with the athlete. Let the average fan fall in love with the athlete. Fall in love with the football player. And he said there's a difference. I always think about that. And, I've done this. It's over 30 years. And it always sort of pops in my mind. Why does that guy test out so well, but then when you watch him play, he doesn't play well? That's a reason. He doesn't maybe have great football instincts. You can't coach that. Either you got it or you don't. And every year, there's a guy that comes out of that combine that just sort of wows you, and he hasn't matched tape for workout. Always go with that tape. The eye in the sky don't lie to you.
I like that. Jim Finks, what a legend. All right, Mike D, we've got a lot more to cover the next couple of months with the draft. We'll get into the Cowboys and several other teams and what all could happen. But you make a great point on Washington and Caleb Williams and how that could impact the Bears and the Commanders. Mike D.
Yeah, with the Cowboys, they need to get better up front.
Yes.
You got some age there and some injuries, and I think that's an area to watch, for where they pick on who they would select there. You need some upgrades along the offensive line. Not that they aren't pretty good up front, but there is age, and with age comes injuries and missed time. And so you also, Tyron Smith, man, he was been a great player, but he can't play forever. Same thing with the Dolphins. Teron Armstead can't play forever. So you got to take long looks at that. That's what makes the draft, I think, the intrigue. Not only what helps you today, down the road.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Have a good week, Mike D.
Thank you, brother.
That was awesome. At Mike Detillier on Twitter. We are the Out of Bounds Show. We're brought to you by Sound and Communications. If you need a video wall for your business, lobby, hospital, school, university, video wall, powered by SoundComAV.com. Show is also presented by Kinetic Staffing. Get the right people on the field. Assembling the right team is everything. Empower your business and career with Kinetic Staffing. Alan Lang and the team at Kinetic Staffing will take care of your business. Get the right people on the field. KineticStaffing.com.